There was a time when America represented the future. People across the world dreamed about moving there. Hollywood sold the image perfectly. Giant suburbs, beautiful highways, big family homes, smiling families around dinner tables. New York looked unstoppable. California looked magical. The American dream felt real, powerful, and achievable. But today, something strange is happening. Millions of Americans are exhausted, financially stressed, emotionally burnt out, and increasingly asking a question that once sounded impossible. Is being American still worth it? Before we begin, I want you to think about something honestly. Have you noticed how often people joke now about being tired, broke, anxious, or wanting to leave the country? Not as a serious plan necessarily, but as a feeling. If you've seen that shift too, comment the word drained below because this conversation is becoming impossible to avoid in modern America. And if this video reaches enough people, it may prove that millions are quietly feeling the exact same thing. Hello and welcome to The Curious Spot, where deep facts and classified truths are revealed. For decades, America had something incredibly powerful that went far beyond money or military strength. It had belief. People genuinely believed life would improve if they worked hard enough. That belief built suburbs, companies, highways, universities, and entire generations of ambitious people. America became the center of global culture partly because it sold hope better than anyone else. And for a long time, the system appeared to work. A factory worker could support a family, a teacher could buy a home. One income often covered an entire household. College was relatively affordable. Healthcare costs were lower. Housing prices, while never cheap everywhere, were still reachable for ordinary middle-class families. Now compare that reality to modern America. The average home price in the United States now sits far above what many young adults can realistically afford. In some cities, even tiny apartments cost thousands monthly. A normal family home in parts of California can easily exceed $1 million. Even states once considered affordable are becoming expensive rapidly. And here's where the emotional shift begins. Previous generations believed sacrifice would eventually lead somewhere. Modern Americans increasingly fear they may never catch up at all. That changes everything psychologically. Imagine graduating from college already carrying tens of thousands of dollars in student debt. Then imagine entering a job market where rent consumes nearly half your income. Then groceries rise sharply. Car insurance rises. Healthcare rises. Suddenly, even basic survival feels expensive. And yet online, you're constantly seeing people your age appearing wildly successful. That combination is emotionally brutal. Because modern Americans are not only fighting economic pressure, they are fighting comparison 24 hours a day. Think about social media for a second. Previous generations mostly compared themselves to neighbors or coworkers. Today, you compare yourself to influencers, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and strangers from around the world before breakfast. One person claims they made $100,000 online in a month. Another is posting luxury vacations in Greece. Another bought a Lamborghini at 23. Another retired early through crypto investing. Even when people know much of social media is exaggerated, filtered, or fake, the psychological pressure still works. A normal middle-class life suddenly feels inadequate. And corporations understand this perfectly. Modern advertising no longer just sells products. It sells identity, freedom, success, escape. Everywhere Americans look, they are being reminded of what they supposedly lack. A better body, a better house, a better lifestyle, more money, more success. Eventually, this creates exhaustion. And that exhaustion is becoming one of the defining emotions of modern America. Now here's something fascinating. Americans today are richer in technology than any previous generation. Smartphones contain more computing power than entire governments once had. Food can arrive with one tap. Movies stream instantly. Artificial intelligence can generate art, essays, and videos within seconds. Yet despite all this convenience, people increasingly feel unhappy. Why? Because convenience and fulfillment are not the same thing. Modern America became faster, but also lonelier. Millions of Americans spend hours online daily while feeling emotionally disconnected in real life. Community structures weakened over time. Neighborhood interaction declined. Family dinners became less common. Local organizations lost influence. People became digitally connected but emotionally isolated. And loneliness changes how society feels. You can see it everywhere now. People scrolling endlessly at night. People admitting they have no close friends. Young adults terrified of dating. Workers burnt out from constant pressure. Even success now looks stressful. That's the strange part. There are Americans earning six figures who still feel financially trapped. 20 years ago, that would have sounded ridiculous. Today, it's increasingly common because modern life became unbelievably expensive psychologically, not just financially. Think about the average American adult. Wake up early, commute through traffic, work all day, answer emails constantly, come home exhausted, scroll social media, sleep, repeat. Then somewhere in the middle of that cycle, they are expected to save money, build a career, maintain relationships, exercise, stay mentally healthy, and somehow remain optimistic about the future. No wonder burnout exploded. And then came inflation. This is where things became emotionally intense. Because inflation does not just affect bank accounts, it affects memory. People remember when groceries felt affordable, when fast food was actually cheap, when filling a gas tank didn't feel painful, when going out for dinner wasn't a financial decision. Official reports may say inflation slowed, but ordinary Americans remember the jump itself. That's what economists often underestimate. Human beings compare prices emotionally, not mathematically. If a meal rises from $8 to $16, people don't celebrate because it stopped rising to $20. They still feel the shock every single time they pay. Now add another layer to this story. Artificial intelligence. For years, automation mainly threatened factory jobs and repetitive labor. Today, white-collar workers are nervous too. Writers, designers, programmers, analysts, customer service employees. Millions are quietly wondering, what happens if AI eventually replaces me? And honestly, even asking that question changes behavior. People stop feeling secure. They spend less confidently, delay major decisions, avoid risks, and begin viewing the future differently. That atmosphere of uncertainty spreads quickly across society. Now combine that with housing costs, debt, inflation, and constant comparison online. The result? A generation increasingly afraid that life may never stabilize. And that fear explains why so many Americans are obsessed with side hustles right now. Think about it. Why are financial podcasts exploding? Why are how to make money online videos everywhere? Why are millions desperate for passive income? Because people are searching for security. Not yachts, not mansions, security. That distinction matters enormously. When an entire society becomes obsessed with financial security, it usually means people no longer feel economically safe. And perhaps nowhere is this fear stronger than among younger Americans. Many grew up hearing, "You can become anything," then entered adulthood during economic instability, housing crises, student debt, inflation, mass layoffs, and rising AI fears. That disconnect creates frustration quickly, especially when older generations sometimes respond with, "Just work harder," because many younger adults already feel like they are working constantly. Now here's where the story becomes even more interesting. America still remains one of the wealthiest countries on Earth. Its companies dominate global technology. Its military remains unmatched. Its entertainment shapes global culture. Its economy still attracts millions worldwide. So this is not a story about national collapse. It's a story about emotional exhaustion, and there's a difference. America is still enormously powerful, but millions of ordinary people increasingly feel disconnected from that power personally. They see billionaires becoming richer while housing feels unreachable. They see stock markets rising while groceries remain expensive. They hear politicians talk about economic growth while ordinary families struggle monthly. That disconnect slowly damages belief in the system itself. And belief matters more than people realize, because societies do not only run on money, They run on optimism. The interstate highway system was built during a period when Americans believed the future would improve. The moon landing happened because the country still had enormous collective ambition. Suburbs expanded because families believed stability was achievable. But what happens when people stop believing progress applies to them personally? Everything changes. Birth rates decline. Marriage rates shift. People delay adulthood. Risk-taking decreases. Cynicism rises. And slowly, national culture becomes dominated by anxiety instead of ambition. You can already see signs of this shift online. Millions fantasize about escaping modern life entirely, moving abroad, living off-grid, buying tiny homes, leaving big cities, disconnecting from technology. Why are these ideas becoming so popular? Because many Americans no longer want luxury first. They want peace. That says something profound about the emotional state of the country. Now let's talk about trust. This may actually be the biggest issue of all. Trust in media decline. Trust in government decline. Trust in corporations decline. Trust between political groups declined. And once trust weakens, societies begin feeling unstable emotionally. Everything becomes conflict. Everything becomes outrage. Everything becomes political warfare online. Social media algorithms make this even worse because outrage keeps people engaged longer. The angrier people become, the more attention platforms generate. Think about how dangerous that cycle is psychologically. Millions of Americans now consume stress almost non-stop. Politics, economic fears, crime stories, AI fears, cultural conflict. Eventually, people begin feeling mentally exhausted before the day even starts. And maybe that's why the title of this documentary feels so powerful. Why nobody wants to be American anymore? Because deep down, this isn't really about rejecting America itself. It's about rejecting exhaustion, rejecting constant pressure, constant comparison, constant stress, constant financial anxiety. Modern Americans increasingly feel trapped inside a system that demands non-stop productivity while giving less emotional stability in return. And now, we close the loop from the beginning. There was a time when America represented hope more than any other country on earth. Millions believed life there would naturally improve through hard work, ambition, and persistence. That belief shaped generations. But today, many Americans are no longer questioning whether the country is wealthy. They are questioning whether ordinary life still feels rewarding. And that may be the most important shift happening in America right now. Not economic collapse, not political collapse. Emotional fatigue. A society growing richer technologically while becoming more exhausted psychologically. If this documentary made you think differently about modern America, subscribe to The Curious Spot for more deep documentaries exposing the hidden forces shaping everyday life. And comment below. Do you think the American dream is still alive? Or are millions chasing a version of America that no longer exists? Because the answer to that question may define the future of the